down through the years, I've learned to accept and own my stuttering. I've learned to put stuttering into perspective. I've learned to take risks with my speech and use the power of support. Now, my stuttering journey didn't really start until I was grown. I started stuttering as a child. In those days, they thought stuttering was psychological. The experts told my parents that I would eventually grow out of stuttering. My response was to hide my stuttering, so I became what we now know as a covert stutterer. I didn't have much speech therapy as a child, and probably that's just as well. I'm not sure what speech therapists were doing to treat stuttering in 1950, but it was probably the speech therapy equivalent of Civil War surgery. I went into journalism because I could write better than I could talk. I really sucked at math, too. I joined the Navy after college, stuttered through several tours of duty, got married, started a family, got a job in corporate public relations. Being a covert stutterer got me through the day, but didn't work especially well. Most people did not realize I had a stutter, but instead thought that I was either very nervous or about to have a seizure. By this time, I was in my late 20s and started to suspect that maybe I wasn't going to outgrow stuttering after all. I was a slow learner. I was lucky enough to get excellent speech therapy at age 28 in a university-based stuttering program. The best part of that therapy was that it included a group session. This was the first time I had ever talked with stuttering about other people who stutter. It was huge. It was such a positive experience that I kept in touch with my classmates, eventually went into what was then the National Stuttering Project, and I finally got around to attending a national conference in 1994. Talking with other people in speech therapy helped me to open up about my stuttering and start accepting myself as a person who stutters. I began talking about my stuttering with my family and colleagues at work. Getting active in the NSA made it easier to disclose my stuttering. I got a kick out of telling employers and clients that I was leaving town, going to the conference. I'd say, okay, I'm not in town next week, I'm going to a stuttering convention. And I'd pause a second to let them wrap their minds around the concept of stuttering convention. And then I'd say, we've expanded the program from 3 days to 4 because it takes us a little longer to make our speeches. I got good at disclosing my stuttering every time I gave a presentation or speech. I figured out that, this lets the audience know what's going on, but it isn't really for the benefit of my audience, it's for me, because if I disclose my stuttering up front, that gets me off the hook for trying to hide my stuttering. So that brings my tension down and I generally speak better. Something that makes stuttering powerful when we're young is that we fear the disapproval of people who have more power than we do, like teachers and bosses. Now, as you get older, that power differential changes, and that's what happened with me. I was a captain in the Navy, and that's the rank at which people make a fuss over you. And at that point, I found it amusing to watch people I outranked trying not to react to my stuttering. I think if I had been as open about my stuttering then as I am now, I could have had fun tormenting people with it. Putting stuttering into perspective has been a learning process for me. Like most of us, stuttering was a big factor in my life when I was in high school and college. I was obsessed with stuttering, worried about stuttering every time I opened my mouth. And over the years, I've found that stuttering is not as big a deal as I thought it was. I started realizing this during my Navy tour in Vietnam. I served on a ship that stopped and searched junks and sampans looking for bad guys. Happily, we never saw combat, but we still had to be ready for combat each time. So one day it was my turn to supervise the boarding party, and as usual, the thought that was uppermost in my mind was, I hope I don't stutter. I suddenly realized that as I'm obsessing about stuttering, I'm loading my pistol, and the guys with me are checking their weapons and setting up a machine gun, and I got this flash of insight. It suddenly occurred to me that maybe, just maybe, stuttering is not the most important thing I need to worry about. Right? In fact, at this point in my life, stuttering is the least of my worries. I'm at the age where I find myself spending more time with doctors, and of all of the medical difficulties that I may face, the one disorder that definitely is not going to kill me is stuttering. Something else that helped me put stuttering into perspective was taking risks with my speech. I ducked speaking situations when I was a covert stutterer in my teens and 20s. I started working for a newspaper when I was in college, and I took that job because I wanted to write, but I also had to interview people and answer the phone and make phone calls. And I just forced myself to do it, and it got easier gradually. Now, do people here have trouble using the phone? Yeah. I certainly did. So it was just my luck that after I left the Navy, I got a corporate job with the telephone company of all places. I must have had a death wish. So not only did I have to answer the phone, but I was strongly encouraged to do so in seconds in a tone of unflagging courtesy. Eventually, I conquered my telephone fears by just picking up the phone and talking day after day, year after year. One tactic that I used, if I had a day when I had to make lots of phone calls, I'd make that first phone call to somebody I was comfortable with, and that was sort of a warm-up call, and that helped. And about the time I got kind of comfortable using the phone, holding the handset with a death grip, I got promoted to middle management and suddenly had to use a speakerphone. One opportunity we have as people who stutter is speaking to speech pathologists and students about stuttering. I use this as my public speaking training wheels. I was kind of nervous the first time I did this, but then I realized these people know I stutter, that's why I'm here. So I don't have to worry about hiding my stuttering. And these people are speech therapists, so if I'm sort of fluent, they'll be impressed at how well I speak for a guy who stutters. And if I stutter really severely, the worst thing that can happen is that some of them will give me their business cards afterwards. The most important thing that has helped me live successfully with stuttering is stuttering support. Being around other people who stutter has always been a special experience for me, first in speech therapy, the local chapter, and finally the national conference. Listening to other people desensitized me to my stuttering. Those of you who are first-timers will probably notice after a day or so at this conference that stuttered speech starts to sound normal. So it's like being on a stuttering planet for 3 days. Seeing the example of other people who stutter is a powerful experience. The first large stuttering workshop I was at, I was sitting there in the auditorium, and a guy gave a presentation, and he stuttered really severely, and I was astonished. It was the first time I had heard someone who stuttered giving a presentation, and lightning didn't strike him, and nobody came out with a hook and dragged him off stage, and he got through his presentation, and people applauded, and then the next guy got up there, and he stuttered too, and after a while, it was like a light bulb went on above my head. I thought, I'll bet I can do this. The secret sauce of stuttering support is that attending a conference like this gives you the self-confidence to take risk with your speech. This conference is a safe place to speak in public, and it's a terrific place to start. So my stuttering journey has been a long-term process of learning. I've learned to accept and own my stuttering. I've put stuttering into perspective and have become comfortable taking risks with my speech. And the driver of these changes has been my experience at 28 conferences. So my message to you this morning is to take advantage of the opportunity at this conference. It's an opportunity to get more comfortable with your stuttering, to disclose your stuttering and own it. It's an opportunity to put stuttering into perspective as part of your life, but does not define who you are. And it's an opportunity to take a few risks with your speech, get outside your comfort zone. If you stick with these points, you can live successfully with stuttering. It gets easier as you get older. It certainly has for me. Thank you.